Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Talking Disney podcast. And this is a show where we like to talk about the Disney canon. And we have been bringing on content creators lately and have been learning about their rankings of the Disney canon. It's been really fun. I'm film critic Rachel Wagner, and Stanford is here.
Hey, how's it going?
Very good. And today we have special guests from the Defining Disney podcast. We have Caroline and Nichole here. And thank you so much, ladies, for coming on the pod.
Yeah, excited to be here. Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Yes. Why don't you both introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about your podcast, what you do. Why don't you start, Nichole?
So we are the Defining Disney podcast. The goal is to use an objective rubric that we created to score and rank each movie in Disney's animated canon and then bring our findings bi-weekly to our audience. So we are almost through the original canon, and we have had our agreements and disagreements, but we feel very comfortable with where the canon has landed overall. And we would love hearing everybody's thoughts on it.
Yes. So, Caroline, how did you two meet and how did you start up the podcast, get the idea for it?
So Nichole and I met 7.5, 8 years ago, something like that. Her partner Kevin was my trainer when I went to go work at Disney. I had just moved to Orlando to be a college program participant, and Kevin was training me. And when they found out that I was going to be staying on full time, Kevin said, "You're safe. You can meet my wife." So Kevin brought me home, and I had dinner with the two of them, and it sort of became a regular thing. Over the next several months, I was sort of adopted as the little sister, and then the two of them introduced me to my now husband Stephen, who they went to college with, and the four of us were pretty inseparable for the 5 years that I lived in Orlando. Yeah, so it's a very special bond, certainly.
That's so cute. I love that.
The idea for the podcast came very early on in our friendship. It started sort of as an idea for a blog where we wanted to settle the age-old argument, right? Because lots of Disney fans, particularly the hardcore ones, like to debate the merits of their favorite Disney movies. And, which one really is quote-unquote better? And so we set out to sort of break it down objectively with a rubric to figure out, okay, how do you really dissect, like, what makes a good Disney film? And really what makes a good film, period. And the blog idea sort of fell by the wayside. Things got busy. Cole and Kevin got married. Stephen and I got married. We moved to Virginia. But then the pandemic hit. And I was working for Starbucks at the time, and they were kind enough to say, if you are uncomfortable coming to work, you don't have to prove that you're high risk. You don't have to prove that you're sick. If you're uncomfortable coming to work, stay home for 6 weeks. We'll pay you. And I was like, I had just moved back home to Richmond. I was in a brand new store. I had only been there for a week. I didn't know anybody, didn't trust anybody. I was like, I'm going to take advantage of that. So I stayed home for 6 weeks. And after the first 2 days, I was like, I'm bored. I need something to do. And so I dug through my computer and found the old spreadsheet that we had started for that blog ranking. And I said to Nichole, I was like, we've talked for so long about doing some kind of content creation. Is this the time to finally pull the trigger? And we decided, yes, okay, I'm going to use these next 6 weeks to figure out how we're going to launch this podcast, and we're going to do it. And so within 6 weeks, we had recorded 6 episodes and come up with a whole plan to start our socials, start our email list, build a website, write, record, edit, and cut together 6 episodes. And on June 2nd of 2020, we launched with Snow White, Mulan, and Atlantis. And here we are 2 years later, almost finished with the whole canon.
That's amazing. So, do you have like a sort of a rubric that you follow as far as your objective? That it has to be so much of this and so much of that and so much of that you
Yes.
quantify it all by.
Nichole, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so those of you who have listened to our podcast, we break it down into 8 main categories. So we do story, music, character development, theming, cinematography, popularity, impact on Hollywood, and then quotability. And they have weights for each different category, descending as we go through those subcategories. And then within those main criteria, we have sub criteria as well. So we are assigning a number value to each of those sub criterion in order to come up with a final score out of 100.
Very interesting.
That
Yeah.
is. I love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. I was going to say, at Stanford, what do you think of that? That objective look at the classics, at the canon.
Well, I think it's a terrific way to do it because I love how you're bringing like some science and some numbers, just like some just so much more objectivity to it. Uh, and I think it's very interesting. Very interested to find out how that compares with your own just kind of personal favorites,
Mhm.
too. So
Well,
anyway, I think it's very cool.
Mhm.
Nice work.
So,
thanks.
was there anything that surprised you that you thought, oh, this is going to score really good in the rubric, and then it didn't score that well, actually, technically, but you still love it, kind of thing, or vice versa?
I think it was a little bit more the other way around. There are several, very underrated gems, particularly from the, whatever you want to call it, between the Renaissance and the Revival, the digital age, the second slump,
The second
the
slump.
Yeah.
um, the
Yeah.
that transitional time period where Pixar was more prominent than Disney, sort of outshining them in story and heart.
Mhm.
But there are several underrated gems in there that really scored better than maybe a lot of people would anticipate. I
Mhm.
think we sort of suspected that they would do that well because they're some of our favorites. Like we grew up with them. Um, and particularly as we've gained more experience with the rubric, it's sort of easier to predict, how something's going to score.
Yeah.
Particularly since we're both so familiar with the canon.
Mhm.
It's not like there was anything in the canon we hadn't seen before.
Mhm. So, Nichole, what do you think is something that somebody can learn from watching the Disney canon?
I think there's something you can learn throughout every single movie. I think from a broad perspective, I think it's okay to see a company go through the ebb and flow of animation. When we start with something like Snow White, that was extremely revolutionary, right? We had never seen a full length animated film before. So we started out so strong, but then you can see where that decline was, especially because of what was going on in the world at the time during the 1940s, bringing that back up when money was starting to move a little better into the 50s. And you can see this ebb and flow as time goes on. So I think that it's okay to recognize that not everything is going to be a smash hit. Every studio is going to have something that isn't very good eventually, because you cannot make bangers back to back to back for almost 100 years at this point. So I think that it's very comfortable when you're looking at the canon to accept that there is good and bad, and understanding the journey that a studio can take overall.
Well, and I've often found that talking about the bad films is sometimes more entertaining and interesting. Just how it all happened and dissecting the the problems can be more interesting than talking about how many things can you say. Oh, that's great. That's great. That's really well done. I don't know. What do you think, Stanford, about that?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think we've had more fun talking about the bad films, right? But I think you bring up a really excellent point about you have to really look at. It really helps to have a long term and historical perspective on these films to see, that not everyone is going to be brilliant, and uh, and not all streaks are going to go on forever. There's going to be some misses, and that's okay, and that's interesting. That keeps it interesting.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's dive in, start talking about our top tens. So that's what we decided to do for this episode. Is we'll each share our top tens because we're covering almost every era except for the package film era, which I don't think any of us had in our top 10. So,
No.
but
Definitely no.
are you a fan of Rachel's reviews? Do you look forward to Family Movie Night, Female Film Critics panels, or the Talking Disney podcast? If so, please consider supporting the podcast by becoming a Patreon. As a patron, you get to access monthly events such as the watch-alongs and Q&As, where you get to talk to stars and find out the behind the scenes of the movie making industry. And you can pick what I review for Family Movie Night or even become a guest on the podcast. Podcasts and YouTube channels are expensive, and I really, really could use your help. I would so appreciate it. You also get to be a member of the Facebook group where we talk about all the films that we're seeing, and we have so much fun. Go to patreon.com/hallmarkies and select one of the Rachel's fan tiers. That's patreon.com/hallmarkies. Why don't you share your number 10?
Yeah, my number 10 is Tangled. I think I have so much admiration for Tangled. I feel like finally, speaking about looking at things from a historical perspective, I think when Disney really decided to embrace 3D animation or CG, go full on CG, there were some issues. Chicken Little, hello,
right?
And I quite like Meet the Robinsons, but I still think that it had some issues. And then, of course, The Princess and the Frog. We won't go there, at least from me. But because I have a low. But Tangled, I think that Disney finally figured out not only how to ace it with CG animation, but tell a great fairy tale using CG animation. As Rachel and I have talked a lot in the past, it's a romantic comedy, and it's so great. The music's terrific. Vocal cast is fantastic. Anyway, I just adore Tangled.
I love it too. Caroline, what about you? What's your number 10?
My number 10 is Mulan. I think that one of the things in particular we really liked about Mulan was the music, the way that it not only moves the story along, but really pushes character development. Like, there's so much depth to not just Mulan, but to several of the supporting characters, and we get that from different songs throughout the movie. It's such a strong outing for the later Renaissance, and we get a lot of praise in the Renaissance for the earlier films, with Ashman and Menken, and then you get a lot of praise for Phil Collins with Tarzan. But like those couple in the middle, particularly Hercules and Mulan, sometimes get a little glossed over. I think that Mulan is a treasure, and it deserves a little more recognition.
Yeah. You'll see where I have it. But yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I do too.
Really enjoy Mulan. She's such a good character. She really is. And I agree about the music. It's underrated.
Yeah. Such a good movie.
All right, Nichole, what's your number 10?
So my number 10 is also Mulan. So I'm going to reiterate what Caroline said. And then I think that when we were going back and watching this film, I think that there were also some really poignant themes for identity that we might not have gotten in 1998, but I think now with the lens of the 2020s, and we're seeing things like gender identity, gender influence, gender norms, and calling those into question as more of a spectrum than a binary. I think that there were also some really poignant themes that were applicable to today's society that I think were ahead of its time in 1998. So I think that it really excelled there to help people understand that you're not just who you were assigned at birth. It's who you become and who you are on that journey through life.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's sometimes a little cringy when Disney starts talking about things like gender and things like that. But at least if it gets the conversation going, I think it's a good thing. Well, I have at number 10 Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. I think that this obviously is important, so it's worth watching for that. But also, I think that it kind of gives you everything you could want out of a movie. It has emotional parts, it has scary parts, it has funny parts, and the animation is still so stunning. I love when she's brewing the potion, and you get those just colors of the blues and the purples and she's running through the when Snow White's running through the forest. It's really great, the animation. I think it actually holds up, not even just as being important, but as being a good film. So that's what I have at number 10. But Stanford, what do you have at number 9?
Well, Rachel, it's one of the few films that I think where we violently disagree with each other. It's The Rescuers. I This was a childhood favorite, and I know it's not. I mean, I joke with Rachel. I know that it's not everybody's thing, but it's mine. It's from, as I mentioned, childhood favorite, but I just think it's a great adventure, and I just love the concept of out of small things comes something that's really great. You know, these two little mice really are able to save this girl, and anyway, I love kind of the rough look of the animation, and love the vocal cast. Bob Newhart, Ava Gabor, I just think are fantastic, and everybody else they brought in too. Madame Medusa is really scary. I think she's a incredible, a good villain, and little Penny's so cute. So anyway, love the Rescuers.
Where did the Rescuers end up on your guys' objective?
The Rescuers on our objective ranking, and to be fair, this is we still have 7 films unscored in the canon, but the Rescuers currently sits at 36.
Okay,
There
so
you
kind
go.
of in the middle. At least it's not like 53 or something.
54 like me.
Yeah, I like the Rachels.
I think
It is not Home on the Range.
no, it is not.
No.
I think part of the charm of the Rescuers lies, like you said, in its voice cast. Bob Newhart and Ava Gabor just absolutely bring the most to that movie, and their relationship and their sort of development as characters is where we get a lot of strength in that film.
The my side, I like the voice cast for that. I do. All right. Well, Caroline, what is your number 9?
My number 9 is Hercules. And I was just talking about how Hercules and Mulan don't get enough love. Well, Hercules is my number 9. I cannot wait until this is made into a Broadway musical, because I am absolutely making a trip to New York to go see it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah,
The
I'm in too.
the music for this is incredible. I really enjoy the animation style. Meg is just an absolute star of a character. She was something totally different for Disney in that time, and it was so refreshing as someone who wasn't like a super princessy girl growing up to see like a very strong independent female who had some complication to her, who had, a dark side, and that she was able to work through that difficulty in her life and that trauma and find a way out, that, selling her soul to Hades was not the answer, and she found another way in the end, and that she's always just been a very special character to me. And And that movie in general, like, brings up a lot of nostalgia for me. My granddad, when I was younger, would bring me little, like, the plastic, like, Disney figurines, like, kind of like you would find in, like, McDonald's Happy Meal toys, but a little bit nicer because they would sell them at the Disney store. And he would hide them in his little front shirt pocket when I would come to visit. And so he would pick me up and, like, spin me around when we would go to visit. And then he would, like, what I have a surprise for you, and, like, pull out of his shirt pocket the newest, figurine from whatever movie had just come out. And one of the earliest ones that I remember is Hercules. I had to have been like 4 at that point.
That's cute.
Yeah, 4 or 5. And my mom still has my Pegasus somewhere at her house because that was the one I held on to for the longest. It sat on my desk in my bedroom up until I moved out of the house for college.
That's cool. Yeah. Hercules, I have it at 20, but I do enjoy it. It's messy, but I think it's sort of refreshing in its messiness. And you're right about Megara, and Susan Egan just crushes it in the voice.
Amazing.
For that.
I love Susan Egan.
She's so good. Where do you have Hercules, Stanford?
I have it at 34, but I love it. I mean, I think it's messy and it's just delightful, but it just have it kind of in the middle of the pack for me. Now, did you see Alan Menken yesterday in his social media, or earlier, I guess, I don't know if it was yesterday, maybe it was just earlier in the week or Sunday or something. Hercules is coming to the new Paper Mill Playhouse in New Jersey, which means that I think a Broadway run is
imminent. Absolutely.
So,
they did it
last summer, right? Was it last summer?
It was summer in the park. In New York, and I had a friend who was a PA on that production.
Nice.
Which was super cool to just, like, see a little bit inside and
absolutely. How cool.
Get the scoop on that. He was posting about it all over social media, and just very cool to, like, see sort of the development of that, and the community response to it was incredible.
It was like the hot ticket last summer, right?
Absolutely. Not just with, like, your typical Broadway crowd. Like, you were getting the masses to be interested in Broadway, and they need it after the pandemic.
Yeah, I don't know how many theaters Disney owns on Broadway. I know they have the 2, the one that has The Lion King and the one that has Aladdin, and I don't know if they have any more. It'd be interesting to see if they are bringing it to Broadway, where they end up placing it.
Yeah, that's fair.
That'll be interesting. But Nichole, what about you? What's your number 9?
My number 9 is Zootopia.
Love it.
And
yeah, it's great.
Zootopia was one of those films that Caroline and our partners went to see, like, as a group. We were the 20-somethings in the midst of a bunch of children. No shame. That was definitely us.
100%.
But I think, so this film came out in 2016, and I'm definitely going to bring up what was going on in 2016. I think there were a lot of feelings, and I think that Zootopia was able to touch a hot button issue about us versus them pretty well also. And when we recorded this episode, that was around the time of seeing a rise in Asian American hate crimes, and the message just hit us over the head again. So I think that this film held more space for me as time went on because of how strong the themes were of us versus them, and tackling that head on without trying to scoot around the point but still making it digestible for the masses. I also love, just generally speaking, the story. I think Nick and Judy Hopps are just adorable. The sloth is absolutely everything. Going to the DMV is such a vibe. And I love that mystery feeling behind it too. of not knowing exactly what's going on, and you as the viewer are trying to figure it out also of what's really happening to the missing animals. And then also the bait and switch almost of thinking that you have a resolution, but then in reality you don't. I absolutely love that. I think that that's really intelligent, and it didn't spoon feed anything to the audience unnecessarily. It let you see what was happening and work through it yourself without being like, here's the bad guy, and then here's the good guy, and then happily ever after at the end.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I have Zootopia at 23, but it's got so much heart, and I think it's might be the funniest just as far as pure jokes of any of the Disney movies. It's up there for sure.
Absolutely.
It's called a hustle, sweetheart.
That's right. All right. Well, my number 9, we've already talked about it tons, is Mulan. Is my number 9. So, yeah, I really enjoy it. Enjoy the songs, enjoy the action, the animation. The only thing I don't like is the cringy ancestors. That's not my favorite, but pretty much everything else I really enjoy. So it's at number 9 for me.
Yeah, we definitely talked in our episode about some of the hokier aspects of the way that they portray Chinese culture in the film.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. Well, Caroline, what's your number 8?
Is it my turn or is it Stanford's turn?
Oh, did we do your number 9, Stanford? Sorry.
We did my number 9. It was how could you
The rescuers.
forget so quickly, Rachel?
I thought we did it.
She was ready to move on.
I know. It's like ignore that.
Yes. No, I'm pretty sure I'm last in the order. So
Okay, so my number 8.
Well, so Caroline, I think, is next.
Oh, okay.
Number 8.
I'll do my number 8 next. I have Hunchback of Notre Dame.
Mm-hmm.
I know that it is a heavier film for many, but the first, it's really for like the first act that this film is so high for me. Maybe even like the first act and a half, because it's probably the most, like, other than maybe Lion King, it's one of the most iconic openings in Disney history for me. My husband had either not seen this movie or hadn't seen it since he was a very young child. And the moment we turned this on, we do like a Twitter watch along for each of the movies that we are about to record an episode for. And so when we were doing our watch along night, we sat down and we turned this movie on, and he was like, this gives me such big Wicked vibes. I was like, well, there's a reason for that. That's because it's Stephen Schwartz, and Stephen Schwartz also did Wicked. But he was completely enraptured from beginning all the way up to God Help the Outcasts. And he will still, like, just on a whim, just cut this movie on and just watch the opening sequence, because that's how much it affected him and, like, how thoroughly he enjoyed it. And just like the animation, the songs, Esmeralda is a fascinating character. Like, such, I had Hunchback everything in my bedroom at one point when I was a kid. Like, I even still have a painting of like the actual cathedral and the River Seine that lived in my bedroom for many years. And I had like a bedspread with Esmeralda and her goat Jolly, their faces just all over it. Esmeralda, now as I've grown, is such a role model for the way that we stand up for people and the way that we demand better from the world, even when we are in the smallest places. You know, her standing up there screaming for justice is such an empowering moment, and I just adore it.
Yeah, I don't have Hunchback super high, but I do like the Broadway adaptation much better.
I'm so upset it never made it to Broadway proper.
Right.
I understand why they did it, and I commend them for, not wanting to fire their non-union chorus members from their original cast at Paper Mill, but at the same time, it makes me so sad.
I didn't know that was the reason, but I think they improved it a lot, in my opinion. But yeah, I can see why, and I think it was one of the best episodes of our podcast that we did. We had my friend Christine on, and we had a really good discussion. So that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think it's a really strong episode of our show too. Our friend Lauren joined us, and it's her favorite film in the canon, and she just brought a depth of focus and research to the to the episode. It's a long one. I will warn any potential listeners with that one. It is a long one, but I think it's worth the listen.
Yeah. All right, Stanford, what's your number 8?
My number 8 is 101 Dalmatians.
Okay.
Just again, a very happy film that I've loved my entire life. I mean, I love dogs, but I just also think this movie is so adorable. It's so exciting. It's so cute. It's so fun. Cruella de Vil is just a fantastic villain. And Pongo and Perdita, are just so heroic. I just adore this movie. I love the style too. I remember as a kid kind of being confused about the look of it because it looks so different from other Disney animated films. But as an adult, I just love it. I just think how interesting the way that the use of color and the really strong lines that are used, in the backgrounds and everything. It's favorite number 8 for me.
And as an adult, I realized I appreciate how little they actually have of Cruella in the movie, which I think makes it more effective because when she's in it, it really packs a punch. But I mean, most of the time, the puppies are with Jasper and Horace.
Yeah, with Jasper and Horace, yeah.
And so she just comes in and
It's just
adds
this
that fear.
presence,
and yeah. So I think that helps a lot. What about you, Nichole? What's your number 8?
My number 8 is Lilo and Stitch.
What do you love about that one?
I love this film. It is not an episode that we've recorded yet for the canon.
Okay.
We're holding on to it, so we can't tell you where it is in the final rankings.
We're saving it for last.
I have a feeling it's gonna do pretty well. But I love Lilo and Stitch and the concept of Ohana. Caroline and I and our small circle of friends, we have self-dubbed the Ohana. So that
nice
concept of Ohana means family and family means nobody gets left behind or forgotten is something that we strive for day in and day out. It doesn't matter the distance that we have or any challenges or anything. We celebrate the wins, the losses together, and nobody gets left behind or lost in the shuffle. You are who you are, and that's what's important. So I think that concept alone and the familial bond that Lilo and Nani have with each other, the bond that Lilo and Stitch have with each other is truly special. And then I also think the movie's hysterical. All the Elvis influence is 10 out of 10. And then I also love all of the Hawaiian cultural influences as well. I am not from that culture, but from my understanding, the researchers did a whole lot of analysis and making sure that they were treating the culture respectfully. So when we have those themes, like the 2 songs in the Hawaiian language, it's all encompassing and respectful of that culture, especially compared to some other films where we didn't quite hit the mark on that one. I think that it's a nice tonal shift of cultural adoration or cultural respect of having a film based in Hawaii with the proper elements treated respectfully.
Yeah, and I think it definitely is a movie that has a ton of heart, and I do love that Ohana message. Well, my number 8 is The Lion King. Is my number 8. Great characters, great songs. I mean, but practically the only thing I don't like about it is the I think they kind of ruined "Can You Feel the Love Tonight." I don't love that with "I can see what's happening, but they don't have a clue." I don't love that intro.
No, but it's Nathan Lane.
It's Nathan Lane. Like
Fall in love,
I can't
and
really
here's
be
the
mad.
bottom line. But for the most part, I love all the rest of the songs. I love the animation. The intro is incredible. Circle of Life is great. When Rafiki smacks him, says,
It's
that
in the past.
he lives in you. That's so moving. And when he's able to forgive his father for leaving him, I mean, it's just a beautiful, beautiful moment. So You Promise You'd Always Be There. That gets me every time. So it had to be number 8, The Lion King. Caroline, what is your number 7?
My number 7, which I know is also somewhere high on Nicole's list, is Aladdin. Aladdin is one of those that we have very, very high on our list. It's, I think, tied for second or third now. It's one of those that I feel like really takes a complete approach to story, music, character, world building, everything that you really want out of a movie, and also gives us the humor, the memorability, the stunning visuals. Like it really feels like one of those movies that had like it ticks all of the boxes for me. Like Robin Williams is just he's irreplaceable. He's iconic. There is no one who will ever do it like him, particularly in the role of Genie. Um, and that's why every subsequent portrayal afterward has had to take a different approach, because if you even so much as smell like you're trying to imitate Robin Williams, you're just going to fall flat. And the music, Howard Ashman and Alan Menken's music, and then Tim Rice's additions, just also incredible. No notes. There's not a single song in the entire score that is a skip. Like they're all bangers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really, I mean, who doesn't like Aladdin? It's
Aladdin
so
is,
fun.
yeah, it's fantastic.
Well, Stanford, what's your number 7?
So my number 7 is Sleeping Beauty.
Yes.
I think Sleeping Beauty is, I think for me, it probably has the animation that I admire the most. I think that it's just absolutely spectacular, the work that Ivan Earl and, the team did on it. The backgrounds, I think, are phenomenal. And just, the use of color and the interesting character designs. I like, I think the Tchaikovsky music's beautiful. Maybe it's a little hokey and maybe a little slow, but I just think it's gorgeous. I never tire of watching it, and just really love it.
Yeah. Nichole, what is your number 7?
So my number 7 is Atlantis, the Lost Empire.
Uh-huh. Yes.
And this film hits all the emotional highs for me. I absolutely love the time period, and I love the it starts off with a bang, starting with the quote from Plato and Atlantis actually disappearing into the sea, Kita's mother being sacrificed to save the city, and then being on this grand adventure to find Atlantis. I still remember the teaser trailers that they did for Atlantis, where all you got was Atlantis is waiting. And like, stop. It's so good. And I love all of the steampunk influence that we get with the technology. I love that it is very like very 20,000 Leagues inspired, but not like a direct copy of it. I love that whole like Jules Verne style in everything. And then once you finally get to Atlantis, it's just astounding. Stellar voice cast. The music puts in so much work in the background. James Newton Howard at no notes. I fought hard for this film in the music category specifically when we were ranking in the canon because I felt so strongly that it put in so much more work than I think people recognize.
We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's the Hallmarkies merch store.
Are you looking for that perfect gift for the postable, hardy, or Hallmarky in your life?
What about getting that t-shirt or hoodie that will help you stand out at your next holiday party?
Now is the time to check out the Hallmarkies merch store.
Full of festive designs by artists like Jessica Miller, Carrie from Hallmark Comics, and more.
You can even have more than just shirts, but totes, cell phone cases, notebooks, mugs, and more.
And it isn't just Hallmark. We have designs for Anna Green Gables, Man from Snowy River, The Nanny, and more.
Every purchase at the merch store goes to help support the podcast and allows us to make the great content you know and love.
There are frequent sales, so go to tpublic.com/stores/hallmarkies or see the link in the description.
That's tpublic.com/stores/hallmarkies.
And just how much is going on in the music while you're watching a film. I think the deception in the climax is really good. I think we're using the magic and technology that the Atlanteans had. We're reviving that to save the city, and then at the end of it all, it's like, oh, what's your story? We found some rocks and fish in order to keep and preserve Atlantis the way that it is to help it thrive again. Absolutely astounding. It's so good for me.
That's so cool. I love that it's on your list. It definitely, I agree with you definitely about the style. I wish that it had been a bigger hit so we could have gotten that version of the undersea ride.
The submarine voyage ride at Disneyland.
Yeah, that would have been so cool at Disneyland. Well, the reason why I didn't say much when Stanford was talking about Sleeping Beauty is because I also have it at number 7. We're matching on that one.
Yeah.
It's
good
so
stuff.
beautiful. Great story. Maleficent is such a great villain. I love how petty she is, and she literally curses a child because she didn't get invited to the christening. I think that's hilarious. I really like the fairies. They're awesome. I like Prince Philip. I think he's pretty kick butt for certainly Prince of that era. When he goes up, faces up against Maleficent, she's like, so much for true love, very good. And Once Upon a Dream, one of the greats. So I think it's great. So I have it at number 7 with Stanford on that one.
We're actually releasing our Sleeping Beauty episode this week. We brought
excellent.
Darren from Nostalgia Cast, who I think has been on this show before.
Yes, he has.
Yeah.
He's
a fan.
Yeah, it is his fave. So he came on to talk about that with us. I am going back to finishing proofing that episode right after we're done here. So,
good. All right, Caroline. Well, what's your number 6?
My number 6 is Beauty and the Beast. Bella's my favorite princess. A girl who reads was like, oh, look, it's me on screen when I was a child, because I absolutely devoured books when I was younger. I would love to still, but life is busy. But I still very much feel like the book girl at heart, and again, the music, Ashman and Menken's, so good. It's so good. It's so good. And there are so many, again, there's no skips. Like even the underrated ones like the mob song, like that puts in work for Gaston's character. And it's one of the only villains where we get a character arc that, well, first of all, it's one of the only villains where we get a real character arc, and B, it's one of the few character arcs where we go downward, right? He devolves from just like, oh, I'm a misogynist to I'm a murderer. Like
he's everyone's favorite guy.
He gets steadily worse over the course of the film and like commits worse and worse crimes. It's like, oh no, I'm gonna straight lock up your dad and put him in the loony bin in order to get you to marry me. Like we went from just like kind of creepy to absolute manipulator, gaslighter, like corruption.
Yeah.
Terrible. But like the sheer amount of character development you get out of that movie is so deep for so many characters. And I know a lot of that is due to the music.
I know Stanford and I both have that much higher. So
same.
Yeah. So Stanford, what is your number 6?
It's Aladdin, and I just echo everything that Caroline said about it because it's just great in every regard.
All right, Nichole, what's your number 6?
So my number 6 might be controversial, but Encanto is number 6 for me right now.
Okay. Yeah.
I know that there's a lot of hype around it. However, I did see this movie in theaters. I think it was the first film I saw in theaters since COVID. So I did see this one in theaters before it was released on Disney Plus and went absolutely viral. But I came out of that film and I couldn't stop talking about it on my way home, talking to my husband, and I was just obsessed. Like it was a problem. And I can do that. I can do that with just about every film, but I absolutely adored what Lin did with this film more than what he did with Moana. And I think that the entire story from start to finish was beautiful rather than just a journey of self-discovery and a journey of healing. I think that it was the sum was more than its parts, because you had this beautiful experience and this beautiful conclusion to a story that was very disjointed at the very beginning. Everyone was kind of living their whole lives trying to please Abuela. And then by the end of it, everybody was a whole cohesive unit, La Familia Madrigal. And I just adored it. Everything about it, just everything, the colors, the Colombian influence, the songs, of course, because we don't talk about Bruno, but then we do. Just everything. I absolutely adored it. I get the hype. And then I also got to see kids love this film the way that I loved Renaissance film as a kid too. I was finally able to make that connection. Like I saw the Frozen hype, and I think Frozen's great. It is very high in like my overall canon, but I really saw the shift in how kids embraced Encanto the same way that we embraced the Renaissance in the 90s.
Yeah, I have Encanto at 18. So the fact that it made the top 20 so early on, it I think speaks a lot to it, that already it's kind of there. And I agree. I mean, we saw it together, Stanford and I, and we had such a blast. It was great.
It's such an excellent film. Yeah.
All right. So my number 6 is 101 Dalmatians. And so we already talked about that a lot. The way it builds tension, the way it uses Cruella, the way the puppies are just adorable. And that my toes are froze and my nose is froze.
I'm hungry, so Mother.
Adorable.
know.
And the whole beginning is so fun with with their meet cute. And I love Roger and Anita. I think they're an underrated Disney couple. They're really fun. So I have it at number 6. So Caroline, what do you have at number 5?
Oh boy, this is where we start to get into my sentimental faves, less than like my merit faves.
It's 100% vibes from here.
Yeah,
Okay,
100% vibes.
Hey,
it's
that's
not
all good. That's why we're here, right?
yeah. The objective ranking is very different than subjective personal ranking. Number 5 is Lilo and Stitch. Nichole very much touched on our found family, our chosen family themes here. I actually have the one tattoo I have on me is the word Ohana, and the O is a hibiscus flower, like the one Snani and Lilo toss into the wind as they sing Aloha Oi toward the end of the film. When I moved away from Florida and away from Kevin and Nichole 2.5 years ago to come home to Virginia, it was pretty emotional, and I decided I needed something to commemorate my time in Florida and the way it had changed my course in life. And so I decided that was symbolic for me in the way that uh, the I don't know all of the lyrics in Hawaiian for Aloha Oi because am not I am not Hawaiian, nor have I done enough research on that language. However, the last words that Nani sings is "Until we meet again," and I always know that my Ohana will be there for me, around for me, whenever it is that we meet again. Um, and so I keep that reminder with me on my collarbone every day.
That's sweet. I love that.
And just the humor of the film, like it's so quotable. We will quote it probably on the daily. Like I'm staring at my husband's Stitch plushie right now here in his office recording this. Like
y'all have definitely hyped me up to listen to your episode on that one. It's gonna be good.
I know, right?
It'll be what we close the year with. That'll be the close of season 5.
It'll be good
at the end of December.
All right, Stanford, what's your number 5?
My number 5 is Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. In a lot of ways, I think I could put Snow White at number 1. I mean, I just think it is one of the finest films ever made, and clearly one of the finest animated films ever made. It really created a genre, that's still with us. Hello, that's what we're talking about, right? It's just, I think, such an excellent film. Every time I watch it, I'm always so moved by the optimism of it. And, I had heard a story or interview at some D23 panel or something talking about how Walt Disney didn't have a cynical bone in his body. And I think that just comes through so much in Snow White. It's just the, and sure, some of it can be called hokey. And I know that, Snow White's voice is not everybody's favorite, but to say the least, right? But I don't know. I do know. I think it's a beautiful film, and again, just really one of the best films. I think one of the best films ever made.
Yeah, it's great. Well, my number 5 is. Oh wait, sorry, I went out of order. Nichole, what is your number 5?
So my number 5 is Hercules. This one really goes the distance for me.
Very good.
Nice.
But I will say that Hades is probably one of my favorite villains ever.
Goodness. Seriously.
He is hysterical. If you ever meet me IRL or talk to me in a more casual environment, the sarcastic, dry humor is absolutely my vibe. Which is why I have another film very high on my list. So Hades just does it for me. And yeah, this is another one that came out like peak childhood, so I just absolutely adore it. The Muses, if I could be the Muses when I grew up, like that would have been the goal of life. So I have a goal for the afterlife. It's to be a muse. Um, and I think that Hercules cemented itself towards the top for me, especially in my nostalgia vibes. Um, when I did a Disney cruise when I was very young, because they had a stage show of Hercules on the ships, and it was everything I could have ever wanted and more. So yes, I am also super excited for this to eventually make its Broadway debut because I will spend stupid money in order to go see it
Oh,
with
seriously.
the cast that they choose to open because I have to see it. I have to see it all. I have to experience it. I have to be that child again that is just absolutely in love with everything I see in front of me and cannot get enough. So Hercules at number 5, and definitely from here, we're talking all vibes, and anything can be number 1 at any given time. Just
Yeah.
because of how I feel and where the
Sure.
moon is in the sky and what I had to eat today, and
Absolutely. Yeah.
but we're getting into the hard hitters for me
Mhm.
now.
Well, my number 5 is Fantasia. I love the animation, obviously, it's just gorgeous. The way you use music. I love the fact that it's just different. There's nothing else quite like it. It's a totally unique cinematic experience to sit down and watch it. And I remember when I was a little girl getting to go see Fantasia at the Villa Theater, which had a whole balcony. It was a special thing here in Salt Lake. And I've just always loved it my whole life. I just think it's beautiful and it's unique and you've got Sorcerer Mickey. You can't go wrong with that. So it's my number 5.
I felt that way about Fantasia 2000 when I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
And then I saw Fantasia and I was like, whoa,
Yeah,
this is so cool.
yeah, it
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
is. It's a
Really
special
cool.
experience to watch.
To see it on the big screen is
Mm-hmm.
especially, yeah, this was a special thing.
Yeah. So Caroline, what is your number 4?
My number 4 is Tangled.
Yeah.
Stanford talked some
Yay.
about this earlier. Tangled it was Princess and the Frog sort of walked so it could run, in that it was a return of the princess genre in full force, but in a new and refreshing way. It was. It felt like the first time Disney really got a modern adaptation of a fairy tale right. Like I very distinctly remember sort of the downturn of Disney and the uptick in DreamWorks when Shrek became a big thing. And that felt very much like Disney was losing its grip on the humor aspect of the audience at large while DreamWorks was capitalizing on it. Tangled felt like Disney finally got its grip back in terms of mixing the humor and the heart and finding the right balance and the right tone. And also nailing the 3D, nailing the music, nailing some of that character development, because like Mother Gothel is an excellent villain. She's like real world scary because there are so many, manipulative adults in kids' lives that can really mess you up. And like that's as adults, you start to see sort of the way that things as a kid affected you, and so you're watching Rapunzel going, oh no, oh god, I've seen these tactics before, I know where
Yeah.
this leads, don't listen to her. And it's it's a combination of like real world scary and fairy tale scary that just makes Mother Gothel sort of part of that uh top tier of hierarchy villains for me.
Yeah.
uh,
So good.
I
Agreed.
also have a sentimental attachment to Tangled because my husband and I were Disney bounding as Flynn and Rapunzel when he proposed at Epcot.
Aw.
So
That's cute.
See,
yeah.
that is so great.
Yeah. Just a little sentimentality.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, Stanford, what's your number 4?
My number 4 is Peter Pan. And, even though it came out way before I was born, it was a movie that I really connected with as a child. Like, we had, the Peter Pan music, and I had a storybook, and I just, so it's a story I love. I think I love the adventure portion of it, pirates and mermaids and all that stuff. I think that flying over London scene when they all go off to Neverland is one of the most magic scenes. And then it's my favorite ride at Disneyland. The Peter Pan flight attraction is just. I mean, I love it at Disney World too, but it's so a very, very, very sentimental favorite. I know it's not. I know there's some issues with political correctness these days, which I understand and I'm sorry about. However, I still really love this film a lot. Sentimental favorite from my childhood.
Think of a happier thought. So, Nichole, what is your number 4?
Number 4 is Aladdin for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yay.
Yeah, I know we've talked about this one already, but Aladdin is super special for me. Another fantastic villain. I love a good villain. And the music is fabulous. It could have been so much more if we hadn't lost Howard Ashman so soon, but it's still for what we got such a great film. Jasmine is my favorite. Saying that I am not some prize to be won is such an iconic moment.
Yes.
It shows that she has agency, and she is trying to lead, into her own fate rather than having everything decided for her. And I love that for her. She's absolutely one of my favorite princesses. So I think that this one, just by design, is going to hold a very special place in my heart. And also, once we get into these top tier films, I also really love all of the Broadway influence and what we get as a result on Broadway. I would say that the Aladdin Broadway version is pretty good too. It was a good time to sit in the audience and see everything that I wanted to see as a child in front of me too. So I think that I can't add anything else to Aladdin other than what's already been said. I think it's fabulous.
Yeah, it's so good. I mean, the Friend Like Me is my personal favorite of the show.
What a bop.
It's so good. Yeah,
I know.
really, it is. Wow.
See, and I'm partial to Prince Ali. I could listen to that all the time.
It's
just
banger after
such a good
banger,
one.
man.
I will say that I think the Prince Ali reprise that Jafar has is one of the best villain songs that we will probably ever get.
It's so good.
I know that there are some heavy hitters, like we've talked about Cruella de Vil. I think Friends on the Other Side from Princess and the Frog needs a minute. I can absolutely understand that, but the Prince Ali reprise is just such a banger.
Yeah. I mean, and I just love it. Don't they look lovely, June? Fabulous hair.
Yeah, I love feathers.
It's full of so many cultural references, and it makes the film more fun for older audiences while still being funny for the young audience.
Yeah. Well, my number 4 is Cinderella. And I do think sometimes the older, the classic princesses get a bit of a bum rap. I don't think that Cinderella does what she does to get a man. She just wants to leave her servitude, uh, and she gets basically a night out, and she happens to fall in love with the prince. I don't think that's her plan. I don't know what she's trying to do. It just sort of happens. Um, but I love Lady Tremaine. I think she's great. I love the fact her cat is named Lucifer. That's hilarious. I think the scene when Cinderella's dress gets torn apart is devastating. She's had been such a hopeful character, and she finally loses her last shred of hope. And that's when the fairy godmother comes, and I think that's lovely. I love that it's magical when she gets her dress, changed. It's gorgeous. The animation, the Mary Blair influence is beautiful. I think the songs are really fun. Bibbidi Bobbidi Boo is great. A Dream is Wish Your Heart Makes is great. So I don't know. It's a classic story. It's hard. There are some bad versions of Cinderella, but like 99% of versions of Cinderella I enjoy. Even ones like the and another Cinderella story with Hilary Duff. I just really enjoyed. I love Ever After. I love Slipper and the Rose. I'm just a fan of that kind of underdog story. So yeah.
Okay, but do you like Rogers and Hammerstein's Cinderella with Brandy?
Oh, of course, yes.
Yes.
And it's 25th
Okay.
anniversary this year,
Yeah,
I think.
25th anniversary. Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. No, it's great too. I'm a big Whitney Houston fan, so that doesn't hurt. But I just really love Cinderella, and I love the animated film. I think it's great. One of the few of the remakes that I actually like as well. So it's my number 4. Caroline, what is your number 3?
All right. Now we get into the ones that are going to be more controversial for people.
All right.
My number 3 is The Sword and the Stone.
Mm-hmm.
Arthurian legend has always been like an obsession of mine, and so seeing Disney's take on it, particularly their take on the T.H. White books, was fascinating to me. I, of course, saw the movie before I then read the book, but the books my dad introduced me to, and this was one of my sick movies as a kid that we would rent at Blockbuster, and I would go home and sit with a bowl of chicken soup and just be all pitiful on the couch and watch my movies while I wasn't feeling well. But Archimedes is hilarious. His relationship with Merlin and the way that he sort of just plays straight man to all of Merlin's kooky quirks is great for me. I also love the song Higgitus Figgitus. It's such a wacky number, but it's so much fun. You just want to bop along to it the entire time.
Well, yeah, and you got to enjoy the Wizard's Duel. That's a lot of fun. The animation is so fast and vibrant in that whole sequence is really good.
Yeah, definitely an opportunity for the animators to sort of show off a little bit.
Mm-hmm. All right, Stanford, what's your number 3?
My number 3 is Cinderella. And everything that you said, Rachel, I think that, I look at it, it's interesting to look at it historically, and it's such a welcome relief for me from the package films.
Truly.
Facts.
But also, though, I just think it's just an excellent. The storytelling is so superior in that film. It's the mice are adorable, but they've got an important part in the plot. That scene near the end where Cinderella's locked in the tower and they're trying, the Duke's there trying on the glass slipper, and how they're trying to get the key up to her. that is so thrilling, so exciting.
Yeah.
It's so romantic. When the prince and Cinderella meet, just get that Mary Blair influence, like you mentioned, Rach, but also just the gorgeous use of color and shadows and everything. And anyway, I think it's such a beautiful story, so well told.
Yes, I definitely agree. All right, Nichole, what's your number 3?
Okay, this is my opportunity to forewarn you. This movie is on any given day it's my favorite, but then when it came to the top 2, like I just couldn't justify putting it over them. So like number 1 in my heart, but number 3 on my list is Emperor's New Groove.
Uh-huh.
And this is also my opportunity to tell everybody, if you don't like this film, you are wrong.
And it's in my top 20, so I like it.
I love it too.
Yeah.
It's so great.
It probably has my favorite Disney joke ever of wrong lever. Why do we even have that lever?
Yeah, so number 1, the humor is fabulous. It's one of the most quotable movies in the entire canon. Again, if you can't quote this entire movie start to finish, I cannot relate to you. This film is just so quotable, so funny, so sarcastic. It literally does not take itself seriously, and that's what I love about it. It is such a departure from what we got from the Renaissance and even the first like couple digital age films that we got beforehand. And in the background, this movie was a disaster. It was supposed to be
Yeah.
something completely
Completely
different than what we
different, yeah.
actually got. It was supposed to be a musical. We didn't get that. It was supposed to be 100% different than what we actually got. But the final result, for as much of a cluster as it was in the back end, is such a good final product. With the music putting in work, the story being absolutely hilarious. Who gets turned into a llama? I mean, just everything. The theming is so good. It did not get enough love at the box office for me, but it did get enough love that we got a spin-off show for it, which is enough, I guess. But regardless, the cast is amazing. David Spade's delivery for Cusco is just 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
Eartha Kitt, wonderful. Patrick Warburton was made for Kronk. Just
Icon behavior.
like
Yeah.
icon, like absolutely,
absolutely.
king, like just amazing. And then John Goodman as Pacha, like how could you possibly go wrong?
Mhm.
It's fabulous. It's everything I could possibly want in a film and more, and it's only like 75 minutes, so it's like a good time from start to finish. And just one more bird for exotic bird bingo and I win. So that's just this whole film, just in a nutshell. It's like the dumbest movie, but it is so great.
Well, and the whole scene with his birthday in the diner is hilarious. That's such a
Mazel
good
tov.
moment. Yeah,
Oh my goodness.
It's your birthday?
With this disguise, I'm invisible.
The fourth wall break is my favorite when they're talking, when they're in the secret lab, and how did you get back before us? I don't know. By all accounts, it doesn't make sense.
Oh well. The shoulder angel and the shoulder devil.
Yes.
Oh my
Yeah,
stars.
Come on. No,
And
no. He's got a
I'm
point.
turned into a cow.
Bucky.
Can I go home?
You're excused.
Anyone else? Get them.
Yay,
Yeah.
I'm a llama again. Wait.
Well, yeah, and I love my voice. My voice.
My voice? Oh well.
Well, my number 3, we've already talked about it quite a bit, is Tangled. Is my number 3. I love it. I actually wasn't a big fan of Princess and the Frog. It was very disappointing to me. But so I went in. I actually wasn't even going to see Tangled because I thought, oh, these trailers, I'm not feeling it. And then I went and I was blown away, and it was so beautiful, and I loved the rom-com element to it. All the banter between Flynn and Rapunzel is so great. I love Mother Gothel so much. So I love Maximus, hilarious. The animation,
yes.
I like the music, and especially Mother Knows Best is just so good. So it's my number 3. But Caroline, what's your number 2?
My number 2, you'll kind of see a theme here. I was an English major in college, specifically an English lit major, and so any like I'm very big into the lit adaptations, and very much like uh, the legend sort of uh, that Disney played on, and so Robin Hood is my number two. I know that this movie has like some sort of like cult following on the internet, and I don't know exactly why, and I don't know that I necessarily want to know why. But for me, it's very much just like a simplicity factor. Like the movie tells a very classic story and doesn't overly complicate things. It doesn't, uh, it lays out the star-crossed lovers sort of situation, and also uh, puts Robin Hood, who is the epitome of doing good in the face of evil, and pins him up against Prince John, who is everything we love to hate. And it's it's a simple conflict, but it's one that's easy for kids to sort of get behind and root for Robin Hood. And I think that's what drew me to it as a child, and sort of as I've grown up, there's different layers to it that you can kind of appreciate. The voice acting I really enjoy. Phil Harris is a Disney legend, certainly, and his turn as Little John is lots of fun in that movie.
Yeah, who's driving this flying umbrella?
Yes, thank you.
Robin Hood is one of my dad's favorites. That and Jungle Book are his two favorites, and so we watched those a lot growing up, and so I have a lot of nostalgia for those. I know they have their flaws animation wise, but I still have a lot of fun with both of them. So
Yeah,
I'm a getting.
yeah,
my dad
Well, and
introduced
hello,
me to that one too.
anthropomorphic animals. You
yeah,
know,
yeah,
come on, they're the best.
yes. So Stanford, what's your number two?
My number two is Jungle Book.
Speaking of Jungle Book,
Again, a childhood favorite. My big sister tells me now, I don't remember any of this, that I used to request to listen to the Jungle Book soundtrack like multiple times every day. So I think the rest of my family like can't stand the movie because I drove them to insanity by listening to it all the time. I love it so much. It is just for me. I just adore it.
Yeah,
Sentimental.
such great songs. Yeah, I mean, can't go wrong. All right, Nichole, what is your number two?
So my number two is dedicated to my dad. It is The Lion King. And the reason why I associate this movie so strongly with my dad is he was the one that would take me to school pretty often because my mom worked in a bakery. So she was in at like 4 a.m. A lot of times. So when I was young, in order to get me to school, my dad would take me in his car, and we would have cassettes. And we would listen to Disney music because, of course, we did.
Mm-hmm.
And The Lion King was always in the rotation. And definitely, so I have the same things that have been said earlier, right? The opening is iconic, the music is great, the characters are wonderful. Hamlet in animated version, I get it. But I will say that my dad and I would sing along to these songs together all the time, and especially Be Prepared with the hyenas and Scar's back and forth. No king, la da 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 da. Like that is something I associate so strongly with him, and the memories and the nostalgia in those car trips to school every morning. I'll always associate with this film. And again, this is iconic on Broadway. I have seen this show a multitude of times, and I will never get tired of it. So I'm just so happy that I'm able to experience this film in multiple media formats rather than just the animated film, but I will not talk about the live action.
Nope.
Yeah,
Oh,
so
absolutely
bad.
not.
Thank you. Yeah.
Amen. Ugh.
But Broadway, I'll talk to you about
Oh,
all night.
Broadway
Oh my
Yeah.
God, it's
is
so good.
just so good.
And the cheap calls for Lion King aren't that bad. Like, they're okay. I would say, personally. I mean, they're certainly better than that live action, in quotations, live action.
Yeah.
Yes.
But my number 2 and number 1 are basically ties. I go back and forth all the time, like you were saying, depending on the day. But my number 2 is The Little Mermaid. It's the movie I have the most nostalgia for. It's the movie that I watched the most as a little kid. It was the first music that I ever really fell in love with. You could ask my brother, my older brother, he'll tell you. He's heard it all day, all night. My sister and I used to have we would see who sounded the most like Ariel at night. We would singing contest together. I love the songs; they're so great. I love Ursula. I think she's great. I love Part of Your World, and I think it's really lame people to say that Ariel gave up her fins for a man. No, she didn't. She wanted to be part of the human world before she even met him. She had the whole grotto full of human artifacts. You don't do that if you're just like, a little bit interested. But I think it's funny. I think it's got such great songs. Under the Sea, Kiss the Girl, the Titans Below. So good. Such a great introduction. All the bubbles, a million bubbles. Makes the animation just incredible. And I just love it. I think it's such a great movie. I love any chance. We just talked about it with our 1989 Disney ranking, so I just watched it a couple of weeks ago.
That was so fun to be able to revisit it.
And I think "Poor Unfortunate Souls," I mean, is such a great song.
Yes.
Villain song.
I'm wearing Ursula leggings right now, actually.
Nice.
Yes. love her. She's definitely in that top tier of villains.
Yes.
Mhm.
So it's my number 2. Sometimes it's number 1, depending on if I'm going more nostalgia. But both my 1 and 2 have a lot of nostalgia, so it's tough. But Caroline, what is your number 1?
My number 1, again, is that lit major coming out of me. It's The Great Mouse Detective.
Mm-hmm.
I love this movie for the mystery, for the thrill of the chase, for the way that it uses deductive reasoning. And again, it doesn't, like Nichole was saying, it doesn't spoon feed the audience, even though it is supposed to be a gentler Sherlock Holmes sort of adaptation, in that it's intended for children. Basil doesn't feed you all of the pieces until the very end, and the movie lets you figure it out. And so as a kid, that was like part of the fun for me, was trying to figure out the mystery before we got there. And once I had seen it the first time, it was going back and picking up on all the new little details here and there. And I will always hold that the fact that this movie is so underrated means that so few people know about The World's Greatest Criminal Mind, which is such a good villain song.
Yeah.
Oh, it's fantastic.
It's such a showstopper, and Vincent Price is incredible as Ratigan.
Yeah. I would definitely say it's one of the more underrated, for sure. Yeah. So I think it's a good pick. All right, Stanford, what's your number 1?
My number 1 is Beauty and the Beast.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go.
Yeah, can't fault you
there. It's just everything that we all talked about. The Alan Menken music and the Howard Ashman lyrics and the beautiful animation, and it's just again such a beautiful story, well told, so funny, so romantic, exciting, and scary, and just everything about it's just an absolutely fantastic film. It's my favorite.
Mm-hmm. Nichole, what about you?
Beauty and the Beast is number one.
That's what I thought. Conan.
So similarly to how Lion King is attributed to my dad, Beauty and the Beast is attributed to my mom.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Beauty and the Beast came out the year that I was born. So everybody can do the math at home. But this film came out the year that I was born, and it's my mom's favorite movie. And then my mom saw the touring company of Beauty and the Beast like 3 weeks before my younger sibling was born in 98. So this film, it is indirectly related to both of her children, which I think is the real reason why it's her favorite movie. She can attribute it to her two favorite kids, her two only kids. But Belle is my favorite princess because I am and still am and will be a bookworm forever. I am currently sitting in my library with the French doors, and I'm working on the wall-to-wall library system with shelves and shelves and shelves of books. That is the dream becoming a reality for me. That's absolutely my aesthetic. My bedspread is the stained glass window from the opening sequence, the finishing sequence of Beauty and the Beast. Like, yeah, vibes, all vibes.
Awesome.
I absolutely adore it. There's nothing really more to say about the music, thanks to Menken and Ashman. Absolutely their greatest work, in my opinion. And I mean, the villain is fantastic. The journey that you go through with our each individual, main characters are wonderful, and you can see clear arcs for them, good, bad, or otherwise. You're really bought into the time crunch of breaking the spell, the Enchanted Rose sequence. I have a painting of the Enchanted Rose in my in my living room. Like, it's everywhere, man. It's just a vibe. And I just absolutely adore everything about this film. I mean, the intro sequence with the narrator at the beginning is one of the best intros in canon, in film for me. So just everything, absolutely no notes. I will go hard for this film every chance I get, because I think it's 100% warranted.
Well, it's tale as old as time because it's also my number one.
Let's go.
Right.
Yes, all the reasons that everybody has already said, but I just love the whole idea that beauty is found within. I think that's a beautiful message, and that if we can look beyond the beast, we can see a beautiful, person in there, and him trying to reform his image. And she's always able to leave. The Stockholm Syndrome is bogus. She just made a vow that she would stay, but she's able to leave from the very beginning, the first day she's there. So I don't buy that. But yeah, love the Be Our Guest is absolutely amazing. The whole Bugsy Berkeley kind of style to it all, and how many servants they evidently have if all these spoons are people, but it works for me. but that's just, it's so good. And I agree about Gaston and his he just lets one person not liking him devolve from being the town hero to being this madman. And it's the only Disney movie I think of where characters actually eaten by the in the attack sequence by the chest. Anyway, it's funny to me, and nutty and cute and romantic and sweet. It's just, and I agree, the whole bell number is just so good at the beginning. Bonjour, good day, how is your family? You kind of love all of that. And we don't talk about the remake.
Absolutely
No,
not.
absolutely not.
We don't.
So the live action remake came out on my wedding day.
Oh dear.
And
Boo.
I waited 3 weeks because I got married on that day, went on my honeymoon, and then went to go see it the following weekend. And my disappointment was immeasurable. Oh my God, I was devastated.
Well, I did almost an hour-long video of my super nitpicky Beauty and the Beast thoughts. So if you want to hear my feelings, it's all there. But anyway, so we all love Beauty and the Beast. That's what's clear from this podcast.
And it is currently sitting in number 1 in our objective ranking.
Okay, that was what I wanted to ask you. Yeah. Where does it sit? And
yes,
interesting.
It is a whopping 95.5, I believe.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So good.
So it's going to be tough to beat, especially since we only have 7 films left.
Well, thank you to both of you for coming and doing this.
Yeah,
this was
thank you.
A lot of fun. I know this was a longer episode, but I just figured with 4 of us, why not just have fun? And so we really appreciate it. And why don't you tell people where they can find your social media and your podcast?
Absolutely. So you can always find us on Twitter at Defining Disney, on Facebook or Instagram as Defining Disney Podcast. We also have our website, definingdisneypodcast.com, where you can click on the nice shiny button that says Join Our Ohana, and that is how you can find out our rubric. It'll actually be sent to your email inbox for free if you just put in your email in that little website. So you can see exactly how we break down each of those categories and sub-criteria that Nichole was talking about earlier. So if you'd like to get a look at the inside process, that's exactly how you can do that. We also host bi-weekly Twitter watch party nights with the hashtag DDP Watch Night. So you can join us to watch our next film. We will be taking a little bit of a break for September, but October the 6th, we will be watching Lilo and Stitch.
That'll be really fun. Stanford, where can people find you?
On Twitter, I'm at Stanford Clark, and I have a movie podcast and blog at moviespastandpresent.com.
Great. You can find me at Rachel's Reviews, all of our social media, iTunes, YouTube, and on Rotten Tomatoes. So check that out. Also, make sure you're following us at Disney Talking on Twitter, and check out our Patreon and our merch store. We have hashtag Animation Junkie shirts. And if you're listening on iTunes, please leave us your ratings, reviews of both of our podcasts. We'd sure appreciate it. And if you're listening on YouTube, please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. We appreciate that so much. And we'll talk to you all later. Bye, everyone.
Thanks
Goodbye.
so much.